I just did.
Hi, we're back.
Hello, everyone.
So, we're going to be talking about spiritual self-care. One of the areas that we'd gone over before, and we have some notes on. Let's see here. So, some examples of spiritual self-care are acts of service to others, connecting with a virtual religious community, reading inspiring books, and also books relative to your spiritual practice. Um, then we also have just kind of noting that spirituality is something that you can find in nature, in art, in music, and dance. And the practice is really this just ritual that connects you to your higher power, to the real you, to your beliefs, to the universe overall. Some examples of things we can do to as part of these rituals would be something like yoga or tai chi, um, mindfulness and meditation, and whether you already have a practice set up, or if you want to start back up, or if you're want to kind of deepen into it and go into other very more structured ways of practicing.
And I wanted to add why this aspect of self-care is important, right? So self-care is so that in general, so that you are taking care of yourself, so that you can be present, so that you can be available, so you can be your best self, and how that's related to parenting as far as like how do you show up for your kids, how do you receive information, even if you're learning different tips on how to parent, are you able to actually assimilate that information into your daily life. Without real proper self-care, our mind's just not in a ready state to really utilize all of our resources. And so that's why we're talking about all of these domains and individual sections. And the one about spiritual, it's not necessarily a religious affiliation or whatnot. It could be just as simple as just getting connected to yourself and being aware of your own thoughts and motives and intentions, and just conscious, unconscious, like thought patterns that affect how we respond to those around us, including our children. And so I think I wanted just to highlight that part as far as why this domain is just as important as the other ones, especially for the folks that find that having some kind of spiritual connection in that component in their life is really important to them in their daily functioning, and being in like I said, showing up the way they want to show up, and affecting those around them in the way they want to affect. Um, and so just to kind
Yeah.
of to add to what you're talking about, what you ended on, did you talk about prayer and clearing space, or
No, we were
um,
going to go to those two. But yeah, Sherry, you're
okay.
right. And that even like, research shows that when we have a spiritual practice, it reduces our loneliness, our feelings of loneliness. It can increase our sense of purpose. And it's this protective factor against, uh, mood disorders and other mental health challenges that we encounter. These can really help resource you in nourishing ways. Yeah. So then we were, yoga, tai chi, meditation, mindfulness, and then going into prayer. Also clearing space. So for some that might be, with the use of sage or Palo Santo, or just your physical space, because we know that has that effect on your mental space and your overall well-being. Also
I've been
journal.
engaging a lot of clearing space is a big one for me. I've shared that with you, Vanessa. I've been doing a lot of that during this pandemic because I've had so much more like time at home, and it's been cathartic. And so that's been I know it is. It sounds funny to be under spiritual self-care, but it has been for me. So I hope that people can um, take into consideration how their home and their environment around them plays into their mood state and clarity and direction and focus. And I think we need a lot of support with focusing and direction right now, with all of our routines and our children's routines being thrown into disarray.
Yeah. And it does,
Mhm.
it's an act of mindfulness, right? Mindfulness about what's around you, and what you're wanting, what you use on a regular basis, and what is
Mhm.
just kind of taking up space for no apparent reason.
Yep.
And then
Journaling.
yeah,
Journal.
journaling. So you could do just kind of, people are like, well, how do I even start something like that? So one of the most common forms, I think, that we recommend to people is called reflective journaling. Just whatever kind of comes up, whatever's on your mind, writing it down. There's no need for it to be fine tuned or proofread or anything like that. Just free flow. And then there's also journaling prompts and journals that are already kind of set up that way, where it kind of gives you some direction on what to look at. And Sherry, I really liked what you were showing me earlier with
Okay.
journaling.
Yeah. So I wanted to share some things that I'm doing to journal. So I bought this book called The Habit Tracker. I think you can't really read it near
Yeah,
you,
I
but
can see
it's
it. Yeah, I like the color
yeah.
too.
I got it. Yeah, yeah. I love the color, so I picked it out
Hmm.
at Target. And I love color. It actually affects my mood, so I picked blue as
Mm.
it's a calming color for me. But this is a very like structured organizer. It's not just like your monthly planner. It guides you a little bit more, which helps me as far as like they have exercises in here called brain dump, like doing a brain dump, like all the things you want to get done. What habits do you want to pick up on specifically, and why? It gives you checklists for every day of the month, so that you can say you can check off like when or if you did it, and then it tells you to kind of reevaluate things if you miss like 2 or 3 days in a row. And this is definitely an advanced way to like really commit to your goals. And that's a spiritual practice for me, is developing healthy habits helps me with my well-being. And so I categorize that as spiritual self-care. And I also wanted to know, I think it ties into this other aspect of which is being non-judgmental, right? So
Hmm.
this is all out for me. It doesn't mean that my discipline is quite in sync with the kind of practice that the habit tracker has set up for people. So my tendency is to start something and then kind of drift. I have a lot of behavior drift and then coming back. And so the non-judgmental aspect that I use with my mindfulness practice is to help me get back on track so that I can be my best self without being inundated with guilt or shame for not meeting the mark, because I tend to be really hard on myself, and I know other people can relate to that. I think we can be our own worst critic. Nobody is harder on me than I am on myself. And so just this practice of my own spiritual self-care of working on non-judgment. So granted, I want to get there where I can like get to all of these awesome tools in here, but I also acknowledge where I'm at in my own process of developing and working on just the discipline. So I just, I made sure to take it out and had it visibly available to me so that I could just be reminded as a prompt to just to be mindful of just diving back into this when I drift, because I just forget if it's not there. So this is part of my journaling process and my own self-improvement. And then I just went to the 99 cent store and I got a journal so I can do more reflective journaling, like you mentioned, Vanessa, just to kind of talk about some of the deeper stuff that might be coming up for me. Some of it can be pandemic related, some of it's not, but reflecting as a parent on just the hardships of the pandemic, since this is a pandemic support group. Just taking some time to really reflect on how the different aspects of this pandemic are affecting you as a parent. I think that's a really, really good practice to take care of yourself. And you don't necessarily have to have someone to talk to about that. You just need to make some time for it, which I think might be hard. But if you could just protect a little bit of time, even if it's just before everyone wakes up in the morning, to uh, just reflect and just invest in yourself. Yeah, so that's my journaling.
I love it. And the other 2 points that we wanted to hit before we head out is the silence and unplug. That's a very that can be very effective in our in our practice. There's a need for us all to be able to sit with the current moment, with the present, and to not be so on demand and active all of the time. And then letting go and forgiveness, because resentments have a huge impact on us, and it can be something that we're really fired up about, and it can keep you from being well grounded. We hope that you all feel some sense of support, and that this spiritual practice that you start or that you exercise is something that helps you to feel supported, lifted, and helps you to feel relief in coping with the challenges that we are coping with.
And recharge, right? Recharge, re-energized to start every day new, right? If you have questions about some of these things, you want more details around it, please just reach out to us. And if you could just leave comments as well, just share with other things that you've been doing. I think that's really important to kind of get us all connected. And we hope that you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we sign off. Yeah. Stay tuned for more self-care videos next week. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.